Hey, what's going on everybody? It's Freaky299 and welcome back to another Destiny 2 video in Season of the Wish. We're halfway through Guardian of the Games and I have a beautiful endgame Strand Titan build for you to try out. This is a build I've been using for most of the season and I just haven't gotten around to actually making this video. But this build is an absolute monster. You can take it into Grandmaster Nightfalls no problem, as well as go and solo the guardiangames Nightfalls if you wish. I've been able to get the top 10% score solo with this build, so be sure to try it out at least once. Of course, with all my builds, there's a dim link in the description along with a picture of the full build at the end of the video. Without further ado, let's just jump into the subclass. Of course, starting out with the subclass, we have our Super Blade Fury. It's an amazing super that just mows down enemies. You can take it into Grandmaster Nightfalls, just suspend everything, slash them to pieces. We get an actual pretty short cooldown on this super, as we just have our abilities generating so many orbs of power, and we're just getting so many takedowns that we get our super back so quickly. So just pop it whenever, clear out ads, and just keep mowing down whatever activity you're in. Moving over, we of course have Rally Barricade. I just prefer the increase to weapon reload speed, stability, and range while you stand behind it. It's really nice to have in most pieces of content, but if you're finding you're getting hit by splash damage a little more, then of course throw on Towering Barricade. Moving over, of course, we have our Frenzied Blade Melee. This is a beautiful 3-charge melee that gets faster recharge the more charges we have. It also severs enemies, so it makes it so they deal less damage to us. So it's perfect to get in, take a melee, sever an enemy, so when they melee you back, they just don't insta-kill you. It's amazing, and just go in and use it as much as possible. Then we're using Shackle Grenade. Now, of course, grapple and threadling grenades are fun, but Shackle Grenade with its suspend is just a beast. You can throw it into a crowd of enemies, suspend them all, suspend unstoppable champions, and save your life. It's really just it's a jack of all trades grenade. Now moving over to our aspects, we have Into the Fray. When we destroy a tangle or cast our super nearby allies, we get Woven Mail. And then while we have Woven Mail, our melee regeneration rate is increased. Now this is really important as we want to be able to throw out as many Frenzied Blades as possible, as severing enemies not only helps us, but it helps our allies. As well as we want to get Woven Mail, as Woven Mail is a super high damage resistance. So whenever we're destroying a tangle or casting our super, which is pretty much always, we're giving Woven Mail to us and our allies, which just makes doing Grandmasters that much easier. Then we also have Banner of War, so when we defeat a target with a melee attack, finisher, or sword, we raise a Banner of War that pulses and heals us with each pulse, as well as increasing our melee and sword damage. If targets are defeated by us or nearby allies, we charge the banner, increasing the speed of the pulse. Now Banner of War is just amazing on its own, as we're pretty much always getting close to enemies with our super and our Frenzied Blade, but we're also using a sword with this build, so we're highly benefiting from that increase to our sword damage. Plus the periodic healing keeps us alive in any piece of content, so it's really great just having Banner of War. The other aspects are nice, but this is the build. Now moving down, we have our fragments and we have Thread of Fury. Whenever we damage a target with a tangle, it grants us melee energy. This is huge, as if we throw a tangle into a group of like 3 enemies, we can get an instant melee charge back. With this flow of getting our melee regen super high, plus throwing tangles all the time, it means we can throw out Frenzied Blades non-stop. Then we also have Thread of Warding. Picking up an Orb of Power grants us Woven Mail. This is just really nice to have, especially in a build like this, because it ensures that we have guaranteed Woven Mail, and we can give Woven Mail to our allies, but we always have guaranteed damage resistance. Then we have Thread of Continuity. Suspend, Unravel, and Sever have their effects applied for an increased duration. This is really nice to have with the Sever, the Unravel, and Suspend. It is only a couple seconds for like Suspend, but it's just really nice to have because those extra seconds, they add up. And then finally we have Thread of Generation. Dealing damage generates grenade energy. We want to throw out as many shackle grenades as possible, so this is just a given to have on any strand build. So there we go, and that's the subclass. Moving on to the weapons. Now, of course, with any build, you got a nice assortment of weapons that you can use, but the main 3 weapons that you're going to be using is a Strand primary weapon, and then Buried Bloodline as your special exotic sidearm. Now, Buried Bloodline is a fantastic exotic because it fires out tracking bolts that leech health, but literally, as you get 3 or 4 kills with this thing, you get Devour. And Devour gives us amazing health regen because every time we get a takedown, we get pretty much half our health bar filled up. When we also get another takedown, it refreshes Devour's timer, so we constantly have Devour with this build. Paired that with Woven Mail, and we have damage resistance, and we have healing from Banner of War in our tangles, and we have Devour, which gives us healing on every single takedown. Buried Bloodline literally makes us unkillable with this build, as we can just go in, use this a bunch, grab Devour, and then switch off and just mow down enemies with ease. Now, of course, in your primary, you do want a strand weapon. I recommend using a bow just for having unstoppable rounds, a hand cannon for unstoppable, and then you also have some auto rifles out there like Perpetualis, Rufus's Fury. There's a lot of strand primaries to choose from. Personally, me, I've been using Vengeful Whisper, which has come from Warlord's Ruin. It's a really nice strand bow that can roll with Explosive Head and Successful Warm-Up, allowing it to deal some heavy damage alongside when it has unraveling rounds. Then, of course, Buried Bloodline, it's just a beast to have in any scenario. Make sure to pick it up, and if you don't have it, then you can swap it out for Indebted Kindness, but having Buried Bloodline to proc Devour is pretty integral to the build. And then finally, for our heavy weapon, we're using Throne Cleaver. Throne Cleaver is a Titan-only sword that just does insane damage, and I've personally rolled it with Flash Counter and Surrounded. Flash Counter allows us to pull up our guard right before an enemy attacks, and it weakens them. This also allows us, as a strand build, to apply Weaken, have access to Devour, so we're getting access to 2 Void abilities. So we're applying Weaken, which just increases our damage. We can go in with Surrounded on the sword and just deal heavy damage with the heavy attack, or we can flash counter an enemy, make them weakened, and then immediately pop our super for increased super damage. There's a lot you can do, but flash counter is really a sleeper perk and not a lot of people pick. So be sure to pick up a Throne Cleaver, flash counter Surrounded for insane damage. And that's going to do it for the weapons. Moving on to the artifact. Now, of course, for our artifact, we have 3 anti-champion perks. I, of course, run Unstoppable Bow pretty much always, as I'm using a bow. If you need to, you of course swap to Overload Auto Rifle or Overload Pulse Rifle. It is important to know that when you pick these, they overcharge the weapon. So whenever you're in an endgame activity, it gets a 25% damage buff. Then for second column, we have Kindling Trigger. Radiant causes solar weapons to apply Scorch. This is just for if we have teammates that are applying Radiant to us. It allows our Throne Cleaver to apply some Scorch damage because there's not really anything else we'd take here. Then we grab From Whence You Came, which increases ability damage to taken and scorn combatants. It's just nice to have. For third column, we have Torch, while Radiant increases weapon damage to combatants affected by Strand and Stasis debuffs. Again, that's just if we have allies that are applying Radiant to us. We have Origin Perk Specialization 2. This improves the benefits provided from Noble Deeds, Unsated Hunger, Head Rush, and Dragon's Vengeance origin traits. Additionally, weapons from these traits are always overcharged. This is really good to have, and you can also grab Origin Perk Specialization 1. It all depends on what weapons you're using and if you want to benefit from that overcharge. So just be sure to pick up whichever one you need. For fourth column, we're grabbing Unraveling Orbs. Picking up an Orb of Power grants strand weapons unraveling rounds. This allows our bow to deal a lot more damage, as getting those unraveling rounds allows it to clear out enemies from a range. So our bow just does really great with this. And then we also grab Overload Rocket Launchers, so we have Overload rounds in case we need to swap off Throne Cleaver for a certain activity. And then fifth column, we have Horde Shuttle. Damaging unraveled targets with a weapon occasionally spawns a Threadling. we're making enemies always unraveled with our strand weapon, so even if we switch over to our Throne Cleaver or our Buried Bloodline and deal damage, they're still spawning threadlings for us, so it's really great to have on any strand build. And then of course we have Argent Ordnance, just in case we're running in Rocket Launcher. As we have more armor charges, we get more increased damage and reload speed with our Rocket Launcher. For those looking for a rocket launcher to use on strand, I suggest Semiotician from Season of the Witch. It's a fantastic strand rocket launcher, so be sure to try it out, but mainly we're using Throne Cleaver. And that'll do for the artifact. Moving on to the armor. Now starting off with the armor, we have our helmet, which is the exotic Precious Scars. Precious Scars comes with the exotic perk Kintsugi. Final blows with weapons with a matching damage type of your subclass create a burst of healing around you and your allies, granting restoration. After reviving or being revived, we also grant an aura that provides overshields to nearby allies. Now, this is really great because it allows us to revive enemies that are caught out in the open and get an overshield so we can get back to safety, but mainly that final blows grant us restoration. Restoration, of course, is a solar ability that provides continuous healing no matter damage being dealt to you. So with this, we are allowed to proc Restoration with our Strand Bow, proc Devour with Buried Bloodline, proc Weaken with our sword, and then also get Woven Mail and apply Sever to enemies. This is giving us so many levels of survivability and empowerment. Having Restoration stacked on Devour is just crazy, because it means every time we kill an enemy with our Strand Bow, we're popping Restoration for us and our allies, and we're refreshing Devour so we're getting more health. This makes it so we can dive into groups of enemies in endgame content like Grandmasters and survive, because every single time we're getting a kill, we're just refreshing our health bar to almost maximum. And then we're just getting continuous healing over maximum, we're getting Woven Mail for damage resist, and then we just sever enemies so they deal less damage to us. It's really such a godlike build that you need to try out. And Precious Scars, the recent buff to it with Season of the Wish, it made this build perfect. Now, moving on to the mods, we have hands-on, so every time we get a kill with our melee, we get bonus super energy. Since we're regenning Frenzied Blades so quickly, it's a no-brainer to grab this because it means we get our super back instantly. We're also grabbing Heavy Ammo Finder. Since we're getting tons of kills with our Strand Bow, it means we're getting heavy ammo for our sword, which we do want, as applying Flash Counter with the Weaken does use a portion of sword ammo. And then of course we have Harmonic Siphon, so Rapid Strand Weapon Final Blows generate Orbs of Power, just good to have as we're getting tons of takedowns with our Strand Bow. Then for the stats, briefly, of course we're maxing out Resilience to 100 for that 30% damage reduction. Then any other stats go into Discipline, so we can get our Grenade and Shackle Grenade down as low as possible. And then from there you want a balance between Strength and Recovery. Ideally you want Recovery above 40 and Strength above 40. If you can get Strength to 50, that is pretty much perfect for you though. Moving down, we have our gauntlets, and for the Armour Mods, we're taking Fastball, which increases our grenade throw distance. This allows us to take out enemies with our Shackle Grenade from way far away without worry. We're also picking up Impact Induction, so anytime we take an enemy down with our melee or just deal damage with our melee, we give ourselves grenade cooldown energy. This is really nice to have. Again, we want to throw out as many Shackle Grenades as possible. And then finally, we have Heavy-Handed. Anytime we take down an enemy with a Frenzied Blade, we spawn an Orb of Power. Since we're pretty much constantly getting Frenzied Blades, this is a no-brainer as well as hands-on, so we're constantly getting super energy from melee kills and from spawning these Orbs of Power, which we immediately pick up. Down to the chest piece, we're grabbing double elemental resistance to whatever the threat modifier is. If you have arc threat, then you're grabbing arc resistance, and you're grabbing 2 of them. Then you're grabbing a third elemental resistance if you can afford it, like Solar, Void, or Stasis. I recommend Solar or Void just because that's the most prominent damage types. Moving down, we got our legs, and we're taking double strand weapon surge for a heavy increase to our strand weapon damage. This allows our bow to deal a lot better damage, especially in Grandmaster Nightfalls, as it isn't in exotic or anything, so having this double strand weapon surge allows our bow to keep up with things like Polaris Lance and Wicked Implement. And then of course we're also taking recuperation, which replenishes our health every time we pick up an orb of power. This also means that when we get melee kills and spawn of orb of power, we immediately consume that and get more health. This means we're just getting so much health on just a single melee kill if we have Devour proc. And then finally, for our class mark, we're grabbing Outreach, so anytime we use our Barricade, we get a little bit of melee energy back. Just really nice because Frenzy Blade, of course. And then we're taking double Font of Restoration. This gives us a plus 50 in recovery, so ideally, we want our recovery to be 50, but if it's 40 or below that, that's okay because we have double Font of Restoration. So anytime we have an Orb of Power or Armor Charge, we're getting 50 recovery and increased health regen. And that's gonna do it for the build. Now this has been one of the craziest builds I've used. It may not be the highest damaging build, but the sheer survivability and tankiness you have on this build, you can literally go into endgame content solo and just shred through enemies. You can go in and carry your entire team as you just focus all enemy fire on you. With Throne Cleaver, you can weaken enemies, deal heavy damage, get Devour applied from Buried Bloodline, get Restoration applied from Strand Weapon kills, and then plus get Orbs of Power for recuperation, Woven Mail, you get healing from Banner of War, and with the Tankle Pulses, literally just non-stop healing from every aspect of your build. You are a support, but you are not just a support, you're a demon. You come in, heal your allies, and completely shred everything in front of you. With the weaken as well from Flash Counter, it also means you heavily buff your allies, because if they're using their supers or anything, you can go in, apply a weaken, and give them that extra damage. All in all, this is a build you can take into pretty much every single piece of content, and it will work wonders. I by all means endorse this build, and I think it's one of my masterpieces. Now, thank you everybody so much for watching. I know I've been gone for a while. If you're looking for a picture of the build, there's one on screen, along with a dim link in the description. This is just one of my favorite builds that I've made, and you know what, I'm sorry for, being gone for so long. School and things have just gotten so busy, but I'm back now. I'm back with more builds. We're gonna get into more weapon breakdowns, and as things approach Destiny 2 into the light and final shape, things are just gonna get better and better. It's been quite the journey here on YouTube, and I'm really excited to see what comes next, as Destiny 2 and this channel, I think we're only on the up and up. So thank you everybody so much for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe if you haven't already. Leave a comment if you got any questions. I try to respond to everything, and I'll see you in the next video. Have a good day everyone. Peace out.